What if the U.S. economy crashes tomorrow? No jobs, no benefits, prices spiking by the hour. Would the state you call home hold up? One small nudge from a crisis and everything could crumble in eerie silence. And who'd pay the price first? The working class, especially older folks grinding to get by. Now it's time to face the question keeping Americans up at night. If America implodes, which states will collapse first? In today's video, we're diving into the top 10 U.S. states that would buckle under an economic meltdown, and the reasons go way beyond money. Decades of injustice, neglect, and missteps have set the stage. Are you sure your state isn't on this list? Louisiana. Some states in America live with uncertainty baked into daily life. Hurricanes, blackouts, crumbling infrastructure. It's a relentless loop with no exit. Yet through every storm, the people hold on. Louisiana is one of those places. But this time, the storm isn't roaring in from the Gulf. It's brewing on Wall Street and Congress in the shaky foundations of the U.S. economy. And if a true economic crisis hits, Louisiana will be among the first to collapse. Not because it's weak, but because it's been exhausted by years of neglect. We're talking about a state with one of the top 5 poverty rates in the nation, where nearly 1 in 5 people scrape by below the poverty line. A place where rural healthcare is so fragile that a single budget cut could shutter entire hospitals. A state where unemployment consistently outpaces the national average, and the scariest part, nobody's shocked anymore. Look at the numbers. Louisiana's budget is bleeding a $700 million deficit. The state government has slapped a hiring freeze on public workers, slashing every non-essential expense just to keep the lights on. But how long until essential services get labeled non-essential? Small-town schools in poor counties, remote health clinics, free lunch programs for kids. Louisiana survived Katrina, one of the worst disasters in modern U.S. history. Back then, at least aid poured in. But if the national economy tanks, who's coming to save Louisiana, not a Washington drowning in its own debt? Young people are fleeing the state at record rates, not because they hate it, but because they don't see a future here. Big cities like New Orleans are crippled by sky-high living costs, housing shortages, and crime rural areas. They're dirt poor with no hospitals, no decent internet. One side's too expensive to live in, the other's barely livable. Louisiana might not grab headlines like California or New York, but if the U.S. economy implodes, this state will be the first to fall and hardly anyone will notice. No one's screaming, no one's live streaming, just empty houses, kids dropping out of school and grandparents waiting in food, bank lines wondering what they'll eat tomorrow. Don't think Louisiana's used to suffering means it's immune to collapse. Sometimes the places that have endured the most pain are the ones that break the fastest. Mississippi. You don't need stats to know Mississippi's in trouble. Just live here and you'll feel it. Mississippi's always been at the bottom of the national rankings. Education, healthcare, income, social services, you name it. The folks here are used to it. They don't ask for much. Just enough food, kids in school, and medicine when they're sick. But if the U.S. economy tanks, Mississippi's got nothing left to hold it together. Nearly 1 in 5 people here live below the poverty line, and many haven't worked in years, not out of laziness, but because there's nowhere hiring. Factories packed up and left. Farms have no one to take over. Diners only open on weekends because no one shows up. Otherwise, the state's budget is a tangled mess. In 2025, Mississippi failed to pass a budget on time for the first time in nearly 2 decades. While politicians bicker on TV, hundreds of teachers, nurses, and public workers keep showing up unsure if next month's paycheck will come. In rural areas, losing power or water for a few hours is just another Tuesday. But if an economic crisis hits, those few hours could stretch into days or longer. No money to fix it. No one to run the systems. While richer states fret over investments, interest rates, and stocks, folks in Mississippi are wondering if there'll be enough food in the pantry tomorrow. Some states would fall from a shock. Mississippi's already breaking bit by bit. Quiet as a whisper, like an old house no one can afford to fix. If America crumbles, don't expect Mississippi to collapse spectacularly. It won't be loud, it'll just fade from memory as if it was never there. And maybe that's the most heartbreaking part of all Illinois. If you've lived in Illinois long enough, you know the feeling, that flicker of pride when you used to say, "I'm from Chicago," now replaced with a quiet nod. Because everyone knows Illinois is sinking. From the State House in Springfield to the struggling counties down south, folks aren't asking, "When will things get better?" anymore. They're whispering, "How much longer can we hold on?" Illinois was once a dream destination, booming industry, top-notch schools, a magnet for people from all over America, but those days are just memories now. Beautiful, but out of reach. This state is buckling under a $144 billion pension debt, the worst in the nation. Every year, more of the budget gets swallowed by an outdated pension system, leaving education, healthcare, and welfare slashed without mercy. And guess who feels the pain first? Not the wealthy. It's the paycheck-to-paycheck workers, retirees, and young folks in struggling towns. They call Illinois the California of the Midwest, but without the tech, without Hollywood, just with climbing taxes, fleeing residents, and rotting infrastructure. Chicago might still dazzle at night, but venture to the south suburbs and you'll see ghosted neighborhoods, shuttered factories, and fathers lining up for unemployment with hollow eyes. Last year, over 80,000 people left Illinois. This isn't just migration, it's a silent exodus. Those who stay, mostly the elderly and low-income families, are trapped. They can't afford to leave, but staying means fighting a daily grind that's only getting harder. Picture it, your state drowning in debt, population shrinking, unemployment, spiking local taxes, soaring, and now America's staring down a massive recession. What's left to prop Illinois up? It's not about whether it will fall, it's already falling, and too many are just looking away. The question isn't will Illinois collapse if the economy crashes, it's can we get out before it does? Or worse, have we already missed our chance? New York. New York, the name alone conjures visions of glitz, hustle, the ultimate American success story. But if you've lived here long enough, you know those dazzling lights don't reach the basements where workers grind through days crushed by sky-high rent, groceries, and bills. When was the last time you hit Manhattan? Still feel that old thrill or just exhaustion crowds and a creeping sense of alienation? New York's coasting on its past glory. But beneath the surface, the system's rotting, and if the US economy truly collapses, New York won't be the last to fall. It'll be one of the first crashing, loud and tragic. The state's public debt has ballooned past $368 billion with interest payments, alone enough to make your head spin. Every budget cycle, they sharpen the knives and slash public services. Crumbling schools, rat-infested subways, overwhelmed hospitals, food assistance programs stuck in pending funding. Limbo as immigrants keep pouring in lifelong locals, especially the working class, are being shoved to the margins. Can't afford a home, can't earn enough to live comfortably. Thinking of leaving. Good luck selling a house in New York isn't easy unless you're ready to take a loss. The poverty rate among seniors has spiked nearly 50% in a decade. These are the folks who built this city, now forced to choose between paying the electric bill or buying meds. How does a place as wealthy as New York let that happen? I know some will push back. New York still got Wall Street, Times Square, tourists. Sure, but those still gots don't feed the neighborhoods in the Bronx, Queens, or Buffalo. where a hot meal is now a choice, not a given. If the U.S. economy dives into a full-blown recession, New York will have nothing left to hide behind. The truth will spill out. A city that never sleeps can collapse overnight because it's been running on fumes for years. So here's my question for you. If that happens, who's going to save New York, or will everyone turn their backs, just like the city has turned its back on those quietly surviving in its shadows? California. This place was once the dream. Endless sunshine, beckoning beaches, and opportunity around every corner. But for millions of workers calling California home, that dream is cracking day by day. And if the U.S. economy truly crashes, California won't be the last state standing. It might just be the first to fall. When was the last time you felt hopeful about your future here? Or do you now just sigh every time a rent bill, utility notice, or grocery receipt lands in your hands, wondering how much longer can I hold on? The state's 2025 budget deficit is a staggering $28 billion, and to plug the hole, officials are slashing non-essential spending. But let's be real, for a worker in Bakersfield, a single mom in Modesto, or a retiree in Fresno, are schools, clinics, or public meal programs really non-essential? California's no longer the promised land for the working class. It's a land of brutal choices. Grind through a month's wages just to cover rent or get out. The stats don't lie. Over 500,000 people have fled the state in the last 3 years. And no, these aren't ultra-rich tax dodgers. They're regular workers. Folks who believed hard work could buy them a home, a stable life, a future for their kids. They were wrong. Those who stay are caught in two starkly different worlds. On one side, Silicon Valley, where CEOs still order $1,000 steaks, mid-crisis. On the other, long lines at churches for food handouts, RVs turned into makeshift homes in rural hospitals, too short on nurses to function. If the U.S. economy collapses, California won't be the Golden State. It'll be the first to spiral out of control, not for lack of resources, but because inequality has eroded every pillar of its society. And you know what's the most heartbreaking part? In one of America's wealthiest states, millions are living like they're on the fringes, forgotten, squeezed dry, left out of the conversation about the future. If you once believed California was where you could start over, the question now is start over how when the very foundation of this state is crumbling beneath your feet. New Mexico. Picture yourself driving through rural New Mexico, purple mountains haze. In the distance, the desert stretches to the horizon and modest homes, sometimes just weathered RVs, dot the roadside scenic. Maybe, but behind that beauty lies a story few want to tell, one of America's poorest states quietly sliding toward collapse. If the U.S. economy crashes, New Mexico won't just be short on cash. It'll be where society's cracks are laid bare, where the working class takes the hardest hit, and the poverty rate here is the highest in the nation, with nearly 1 in 5 people living below the federal poverty line. In rural areas, it's even worse, especially among Native American and Hispanic communities. They're used to doing without. But without is turning into gone. Know what's happening to healthcare here? Small hospitals are closing, starved of funds. People drive hours for a doctor's visit. If a financial crisis slashes healthcare budgets, it won't just mean services paused, it'll mean lives left behind. Education's no better. In parts of the state, classrooms still use chalkboards and teachers dip into their own pockets for kids' books. When budgets get tighter, schools stop sowing hope and start breeding despair. And when a generation grows up disillusioned, what do you think happens to this state's future? But the cruelest part, the sense of being forgotten. New Mexico doesn't make national headlines. It's got no Wall Street, no Hollywood, no one's making movies about them. No hashtags go viral for their struggles, and that's exactly why when the US economy tanks, no one's rushing to their defense. The state government's trying to hold things together with slashed budgets and scraps of federal aid, but it's like slapping a band-aid on an open wound. With no robust industries, no thriving young workforce, no tech hub to pivot to New Mexico, risks being left in the dust if America faces a major upheaval. And here's the gut punch question. When New Mexico sinks, who'll even notice? No explosions, no roaring protests, just families quietly packing up. Towns turning off their lights earlier, kids skipping school, and elders sitting in the dark, waiting for a call from a world that stopped dialing. New Mexico won't collapse because it's weak. It'll collapse because no one's left to hold it up. West Virginia. Step foot in West Virginia, and you'll see a different kind of American beauty. Rolling hills forests draped in morning mist, and tiny towns nestled on slopes as if time itself forgot them. But behind that serene facade lies a gut-wrenching question. How can a place so breathtaking be so desperately poor? West Virginia was once the beating heart of America's coal industry. Whole generations grew up to the rhythm of pickaxes, machinery, and a promise. Work hard and your kids will have a better life than you, but now mines are shuttered. Factories sit silent. That promise echoes through the canyons, lost and cold. Unemployment in some counties still hovers above 8%. In McDowell County, guess how many grocery stores they have? One for the entire county. You heard that right. A county in America, the wealthiest nation on earth, has one place to buy food. Not because folks are lazy, because there's nothing to do, nothing to sell, and no one left to serve. If the US economy collapses, West Virginia won't scream. It won't protest. It won't make headlines. It'll just crumble quietly like a rotting wooden cabin, doors unhinging bricks, tumbling until nothing's left but rusted memories. Did you know many families here still use unfiltered well water? The public water systems broke down long ago. Power flickers, internet so spotty, kids can't study online. And this is America in 2025. The state government's trying scraping by with meager budgets and dribbles of federal aid. But it's like slapping a band-aid on gangrene, not enough. Not in time, while other states talk AI, green energy, and tech breakthroughs. West Virginians just pray another clinic doesn't close. The young leave and don't come back. The elderly stay with no choice. Families split apart, not by war, but by an economy too frail to hold them together. West Virginia's not a big state. It's got no Wall Street, no Silicon Valley. But it was once a vital piece of the American dream, the belief that hard work meant a decent life. If this state falls, it's not just a dark spot on the map. It's a sign that the American dream built on the sweat of workers is cracking at its roots. If everything collapses tomorrow, who's coming to save West Virginia? Or will the rest of us just glance over and keep living in our bubbles? Nevada. For many, Nevada's just Las Vegas, neon lights, casinos, glitzy hotels, and all-night parties. But if you live here, not just swing through for a weekend, you see a different Nevada one, where the glow has dimmed, where behind the slot machines are workers counting spare change to get by. If the US economy crashes, Nevada will be one of the first states to buckle, not because it's the poorest, but because it leans so heavily on the flimsiest thing of all luxury. Over 30% of Nevada's GDP comes from tourism and entertainment. Think about it when Americans start tightening their belts. The first thing they ditch is non-essential splurges like a Vegas getaway. When the tourists stop coming, Vegas goes dark. The whole state follows. We saw a preview in 2020 when COVID-19 shuttered dozens of casinos and left thousands of hotel staff, cleaners, servers, and maintenance workers jobless overnight. By 2025, those scars still haven't healed. Many of those folks are still hunting for stable work trapped in cycles of debt and uncertainty. If the national economy takes another deep dive, what's left for Nevada? A ghost town entertainment industry, a real estate market imploding from inflated values, and a working class with no other trade to fall back on besides serving tourists. Let's be real, Nevada has no safety net. No robust secondary industries, no sturdy rural healthcare system, no reliable revenue beyond gambling and hotels. Even as you watch this, the state's projecting a $200 million budget shortfall over the next 2 years, driven by shrinking tourist spending. While cities like Reno and Vegas cling to their glossy facades out in the fringes in mobile home parks and faded towns along the highway, you'll find shuttered houses, kids without decent schools, and seniors lining up for food aid. And somewhere in the desert, a dad sleeping in his car, pinching pennies to buy gas tomorrow so he can get his kid to school. Nevada's not poor like Mississippi, it's not rotting like West Virginia, but it's built on sand, and one strong gust from Wall Street could topple it like a casino table flipped upside down. If you think Nevada can always bank on Vegas, remember this: nobody keeps gambling when their pockets are empty. New Jersey, the 11th most populous state in the U.S. Tucked right beside dazzling New York, for many New Jersey was once the just right choice. Not too far from the big city, but quiet enough to call home. But for the workers fighting to hang on here, it's no longer just right, it's overwhelming. Skyrocketing rent, property, taxes, insurance, utilities. It's all pushing hundreds of thousands of families into a grim reality, employed but still broke. And if the U.S. economy craters, New Jersey will be one of the first to fall, not for lack of money, but because its debt has crossed the breaking point. The state's budget looks flashy on paper, $57 billion in 2025. But here's the warning from financial experts. New Jersey's spending more than it's earning, and without a turnaround, it's barreling toward a full-blown fiscal crisis in just a few years. Pension debt, a $250 billion ticking time bomb, one of the worst in the nation. While politicians bicker over what to cut, residents are stuck paying sky-high taxes to prop up an increasingly clunky bureaucracy. Ask someone in Newark, Trenton, or Camden if they still believe the state's got their back. When schools are short on teachers, public buses are a rare sight, and local hospitals get merged or shuttered. What's left to trust New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes in the country. But in return, many residents see little value for their hard-earned dollars. It's a slow strangulation month after month, year after year, with no way out. If a nationwide economic crisis hits what's holding New Jersey together, a state with crushing living costs, a rapidly aging population, manufacturing jobs fleeing elsewhere, and young people bailing in droves, that's the real terror. The young aren't choosing New Jersey to start their lives. They're heading to cheaper, less taxing, more opportunity-rich places. Left behind are the middle-aged and elderly, the ones who built this state, now grappling with soaring prices, declining quality of life, and the sting of abandonment by a system they once believed in. If you think New Jersey can tough it out through a crisis, remember even the strongest body has its limits, especially when it's been straining alone for far too long. And when the system breaks, there won't be a dramatic collapse. Just one day you'll notice the neighbor's house is empty, the corner store is boarded up, the bus doesn't come anymore, and you don't know who to call for help. Hawaii. Say Hawaii, and people picture turquoise beaches, swaying palms, and vibrant, postcard-perfect vacations. But if you live here, not just visit for a week, you know this paradise is fracturing. And if the U.S. economy collapses, Hawaii will be one of the first to break and the loneliest. Did you know a gallon of milk in Hawaii can cost $9, a loaf of bread, nearly $6, a tank of gas for cooking, double what you'd pay on the mainland? Everything food, fuel, medical supplies gets shipped or flown in one hiccup in the supply chain or a spike in global fuel prices, and Hawaiians are left with nothing to lean on. On the mainland, you can drive a few hours for cheaper options. Here, there's nowhere to go. No neighboring state, no land border, just an endless ocean and a suffocating sense of being trapped. Trapped in the highest cost of living in America. Trapped in an economy tethered to tourism, the most fragile industry in a crisis. Trapped in the live in paradise fantasy that's really a daily fight to survive. Thousands of families born and raised here are now living in cars or crashing with relatives, not because they're jobless, but because even a paycheck can't cover rent. Places like Maui and the Big Island, once buzzing with millions of tourists yearly, are watching small businesses fold, one by one. Airbnb rentals have sprouted like weeds, jacking up housing costs and pushing native Hawaiians off the land their ancestors called home. The state government's trying to keep things in check, but between budget pressures, climate change, and near-total reliance on the mainland economy, Hawaii is like an island sinking with no lifeboat big enough to save it. If America plunges into a deep recession, tourism dries up shipping stalls, federal aid gets slashed, Hawaii will face an existential crisis. Not enough goods, not enough healthcare, not enough resources to fend for itself. And the saddest part, when it happens, Hawaii will fall quietly. No protests, no riots, just small communities, fading families leaving or unable to leave at all. The world's tourist paradise will be nothing but a beautiful dream. Left in the past. Every state on this list, from flood-ravaged Louisiana to quietly fading Mississippi to California and New York, buckling under crushing costs, is a piece of a wobbling American puzzle. This video isn't about cheering for the division of the United States or pushing for secession. All content here is shared to explore, analyze, and spark discussion based on current events, emotions, and social trends. We respect the U.S. Constitution and all federal regulations. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next uploads where we dive into the stories. Mainstream media often sidesteps. What state are you living in? Are you seeing signs of decline? Drop a comment below. We want to hear from you, the people living the real America day in and day out.